glare could have scorched a fry pan. Diesel bit back angry words. He'd been stupid to say it in the first place. He would no more leave them here as they would him. "Ethan is going to give you a shot of morphine, and then we got to make it to the Jeep, you hear me?" Maddox said, crouching next to him. He met the captain's eyes and nodded. With the unit's captain Elijah Cobalt on his honeymoon, that left Maddox in charge of the team. "I hear you." They typically didn't use morphine because the medic wanted their patient talking or screaming. It meant they were alive. But since his injury wasn't life-threatening, Diesel gave an abrupt nod. The slight prick of the needle, and several minutes later, Diesel's breath released in a long rush. The muscles in his neck eased, and he rolled his shoulders. Zane and Maddox reached beneath his armpits and lifted him. Each of his arms were placed over their shoulders. He hopped as quickly as possible, but he knew he was fucking slowing them down. Heavy fire erupted behind them as the insurgents sensed they were on the run and pressed their advantage. Fuck, he was a hindrance to his team. Zane and Maddox never slowed, and when they reached the Jeep, he was hefted up into the back. Infinity leaped into the Jeeps just as the enemy came around the building. Zane handed him his M16. The cold metal of the weapon felt as familiar as his boots, and Diesel checked the clip before slamming it back home. Aiming out of the back of the Jeep, he sent 50 rounds back at their pursuers. Bodies fell to the ground, and the enemy dove for cover just as the Jeep tore away from the compound. Clenching his teeth, his lips drew wide, and he sent several more rounds out, keeping them at bay. "Take that, you motherfuckers." He gripped the side of the Jeep as it hit a pothole, bouncing them into the air. He came down hard, the bone-jarring pain dimmed by the drugs. The Jeep tore up and over a nearby rise and sped down the other side and on through the dusk. With the enemy left behind, Diesel closed his eyes and gripped his weapon. Almost 10 clicks later, they reached an open field. He sat in the truck while the team popped smoke. Within minutes, a Black Hawk swooped in, and he and Oliver were loaded up. It was the fucking hardest thing to do, leaving his unit behind. "Fucking text Zane when you get stateside, or he'll be a bitch to deal with," Isaac joked, but Diesel saw the worry in the young man's eyes. "I will." He gave Isaac a quick nod, and then over his shoulder, he gave his baby brother a thumbs up. Zane, holding Diesel's gaze the whole time, reached out and pulled Isaac away from the helicopter. Maddox stepped closer, and he held the soldier's gaze. They'd become good friends with the captain over the past several months. They'd grown close after the cave-in back at the Triple R. He gripped Maddox's hand. "Bring the Tama home safe." "I will. Besides, River will have my ass if anything happens to me." Maddox smirked, returning his hard grip. "So will I." "We've got to go," the pilot shouted. Maddox nodded and then backed away from the bird. The Black Hawk lifted, and Zane held his gaze for a long moment. Diesel felt his own eyes burn as his baby brother finally turned and ran with the rest of Infinity toward the Jeeps. The helicopter hovered, and 2 gunners opened fire with several machine gun rounds and a few RPGs. That would hopefully give the unit enough time to make it back to base camp. Diesel rubbed a hand over his mouth as the scene grew smaller until his team was lost from view. Chapter 2. Triton.
"No! Please, Clay, not again! No!"
A hand to his face shoved him back into the closet, and his screams were ignored over the roar of laughter. Tripping over the shoes and boxes, he fell on his ass, cracking his head on the wall. The heavy door slammed shut, and the lock clicked into place. The special lock Clay had installed. Through the door came the sound of their laughter over his own ragged breath.
"Please, Clay, please! I'll be good,"
he cried, and lifted his hands to pound at the door. When that didn't work, he clawed and jiggled the doorknob. A fist hit the door. He jumped, sucking in one breath after another. Clay, Otto, and their friends laughed again. It was always the same struggle to breathe in the dark. He sucked in another quick gasp of air. His head buzzed, and white sprinkles edged his vision. He gazed wide-eyed into the darkness and clung to the thin white line of light beneath the door. He'd never liked the dark, even before the cave-in that had trapped him for hours.